Welcome to Nice Ashes. I'm Nate.
I'm Mike.
We're going to do... What are we doing this episode?
Tequila Cigar, Rock Paper Scissors Championship, and...
The Brooklyn subway shooting?
Brooklyn subway shooting.
All right.
Done deal.
Well, let's get these tequila cigars going. And for those of you who don't know or haven't watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger video that we told you to watch, Mike's going to walk us through how to set these up.
Yes. Now, in the original video, he cut it and lit it, and then put the tequila on.
Yes.
We did not do last time.
We didn't do that last time. We had really soggy cigars.
Yes, we did. So let's cut them,
Okay.
light them. Oh, we got a little funkage there.
Yep.
That's
I had a
okay.
little funkage as well. What cigars are these now?
These are the exact same cigars that we smoked a couple episodes ago.
The Bin Maduros.
The Bin Maduros.
Right.
Yes.
We were pretty evenly not impressed, but not overly disimpressed either.
Yeah, they were not the greatest thing in the world.
Yes.
Not the greatest thing in the world.
But now let's see, because we have smoked these before. We know how they taste, or vaguely don't taste. And let's see if Arnold's Tequila Cigar can save us. Or these.
Well, let's light her up.
All right.
Of course.
Mine too. Here we go.
It's a little cold here in the smoke shack. So I'm guessing that was the root of my lighter's issue.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we're lit.
We are lit. And most of the time I wet my cigars before I cut them. But since we're doing tequila cigars,
Yep.
I figured I wouldn't this time.
And I just followed suit.
Yes. So, the key to the tequila cigar is you get yourself your little brush with the tequila, and you brush it on.
And you can use Mom's turkey brush. It's
Yes.
okay.
I don't know what kind of brush this is.
I like them, though. I use them for, like, coating oil on bread before I bake it.
Ah, okay.
He uses his for tequila cigars.
I use mine for tequila cigars. I think that this is Sarah's, not mine. We are a couple in our 30s, and we lived single for many, many years.
Yeah.
So we'll have a
And
whole
now you
kitchen.
have a silicone brush together.
Yeah, now we have a silicone brush together that I have no idea. Now this is fairly wet.
Yes. I should do mine.
And you should brush yours, yes.
I will now brush mine.
And we have to dip the tip once they dry out. And we'll see.
It's like painting,
Yes,
but with liquor.
but with liquor. With Costco tequila.
Yeah. Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. Oh, we need to talk about King Cobra sometime.
Yes. We did talk about him.
A little
episode
bit,
1.
yeah. A little bit, yeah.
All right. Mine has now been coated.
Perfect. And I will take mine
You'll take yours.
and dip the tip, but
right.
not for 30 seconds.
Yes.
All right, I did.
And I have
5
to-
seconds.
All right. I have to wait for mine to dry.
I would say at least partially dry, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I will wait for a moment.
Definitely some moisture on the tip of mine, but it's all part of the experience.
Yes. It's one of those unnerving things where it's moisture on the tip that isn't yours, but in this case, it's not from somebody else. It's from tequila.
Yes.
So,
You want me to dip it?
no, do you think I should dip it?
I mean, you can. Mine's getting dried out.
Yeah. Well, you already dipped yours.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 5 seconds.
There we go.
There we go, 5 seconds.
I will say that this is better than the original already.
Yeah. Could be the tequila talking.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it probably is. It's the only thing different about it.
It's much better. Initially, the puffs it tastes good.
Yeah, it does taste good.
Yeah, it definitely does.
I don't. How would you describe it compared to the other one we smoked, just straight out of the bin?
The other one was really flat.
Yeah, this kind of it rounds it out.
It does. It adds a lot of body to it, really.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because just a little bit of tequila on the outside.
And, you know, I never believed that in college. A little bit of tequila goes a long way. A lot of it is tequila goes a lot further.
I know. It's pretty impressive.
But this is our second time trying the tequila cigars. And the first time, as Mike said, our cigars were quite soggy by the end. But it was late in the evening, and we had already partaken in quite a bit of adult entertainment.
Yes, we had.
Booze and cigars. So this one we're trying a little bit better, and we are still face to face in Mike's smoking patio or porch, patio porch.
It's a porch. It's a porch. Yeah, it's a multi-use room.
Yeah,
the dog's kennel, the bookshelves.
Yes.
You know,
and the for all you listeners at home, or in your car, or at work, wherever you may be, the gym. Mike's dog did find the fourth leg shortly after we stopped recording on last episode.
Yes, she did. Now she's out there looking for another one.
Yeah, and we are drinking the hazy IPA, Boatswain from Trader Joe's. It's $4.99 for a 6-pack. I did some research. It's brewed in Monroe, Wisconsin. They've got a really good business where they do a lot of contract brewing. So they've got a lot of brews, and restaurants or other places can pay for them to label that beer whatever label they want. And that's what Trader Joe's does. And you can actually work with them to get your specific type of beer that you like. So this one's got a little bit of orange. It's a hazy IPA. It's not one of their standards, so Trader Joe's must have worked with them to develop this beer for them, but they do all the Boatswain, which I incorrectly called Boatswain, which is how it's written, but if you pronounce it the right way, it's Boatswain. So don't send me any hate mail on that. But they also have another beer there at Trader Joe's that's similarly priced, but it's more of a lager, and it's also by the same brewing company in Monroe. They've got 3 different breweries under their hat.
So far, I'm liking this much better than the original. My cigar has pretty much entirely absorbed all the tequila that I put on it. And this is just Kirkland Silver, which is a extremely reasonable tequila that you can get at Costco. And I like it. Probably buy a bottle a year for the summertime.
And now I've been jabbing away, and Mike's pulled ahead in the smoking rate. But I agree with everything that he's said so far. Much nicer than the last time we smoked this.
Oh, yes. It turns... I can't remember how I came across it, the video with Arnold. But he swore by it, and it's like, well, let's give it a shot. And we did, and it was... I'm impressed that it made this stick. Actually, I like it.
Yeah, actually enjoyable.
Yeah, this is actually very good.
Yeah. All right, so before we get into what we talked about we're going to be getting into, let's talk very briefly about Star Trek Picard.
Oh, okay.
Right? So now I've seen the whole first season. Why would you play with that?
You've seen the whole first season.
Mike likes to fidget with things, and he picks the loudest things to grab, and I just watched him do it. And but anyway, so I've seen the whole first season, and I was really excited because as a big, not anymore, but as a big fan of Doctor Who in the past, the reboot starting with Christopher Ecclesian. They set with Doctor Who a maximum number of times that he could regenerate in the original series from the BBC, and they were getting close to that. And I was kind of getting excited because how do you kill a character that until previously has never been able to be killed? And then how would you kill a franchise that's made you so much money? And they did their thing to get around it. But what intrigued me about Picard initially was, here's a Starfleet captain, and he's done. He's retired. He's got his vineyard now, and he's got his dog, and he's just hanging out. And so it's like, okay, well, let's see how he wraps up his life then. I mean, basically, let's see the end of his life. He's not the Starfleet captain. He's not, in a position of power. He's just basically a civilian. And let's see what they do with it. And I watched the whole first season, and there was maybe one episode that I was like super gung-ho about, and 7 and 9 comes back and just goes apeshit and destroys a bunch of stuff, and it's really cool. But what I'll say is they kind of turned Picard into an action hero. Like every episode is actiony, and it's like, come on, this isn't Kirk, like who solves things with his fists. He solves things with his mind, And you saw one episode.
I saw the very first episode, and then I don't have Paramount Plus, so I watched some of the reviews, and the reviews convinced me to not watch the show.
The only reason I watched the whole first season is I have a buddy, and he's like, you got to keep watching it. You got to keep watching it. I want to talk to you about it. And, I watched the whole first season, and at the end of the first season, here's what they do. Well, so they make it so anti-Star Trek to begin with, where they're doing some kind of persecution of cyborgs, like Data, right? So anything that's AI is like, now the Starfleet is having a witch hunt for AI, even though they had Data working for them forever.
Sure.
Right? And, you just can't help but think, like, this is just shoehorned in, for the current social commentary going on, which is fine. Star Trek has always been about social commentary and acceptance of others, but in this instance they were kind of like retconning the entire Next Generation onward, where they had symbiotic life forms, or synthetic life forms, sorry, and kind of like retconning it to make Starfleet evil, and certainly as fans of Kirk and even Picard to some extent, like, yes, they sometimes will go outside of their dictum, outside of their responsibilities to further the greater good. But this one kind of makes all of Starfleet just evil. But the way, and so Picard's brain thing from Next Gen, he had a brain, I don't remember what the brain thing was, but it's basically incurable, inoperable, whatever. And they gave him that, I don't remember what episode. In the Next Generation, but it comes back in this, and the way they solve it is they download his consciousness, and then they put him into a cyborg at the end of the first season. And so now it is no longer Picard. Picard is essentially dead, but this is his consciousness living on in a cyborg like Data.
Sure.
So it's not even Picard anymore. So now they can theoretically have this cyborg Picard, or make as many copies of him as they want, and Picard can live on forever and ever and ever and ever, which is basically the laziest and cheapest way to prolong your protagonist's life. And instead of giving us some really good writing about how does Picard choose to end his life with his brain condition flaring up again, does he go say goodbye to everybody, what happens? Now he lives forever. He's a robot, he's invincible. And they gave him like a lifespan based on an algorithm type of thing. So he doesn't know exactly when he's going to die. So it's just like a cheap way of saying, well, there, we fixed that brain thing. Like, why not just make one of the medical doctors say, hey, I just cured it in my lab. Do you want to be the first human trial?
Sure.
Like, done. We don't have to spend so much time on it if you could just make him a cyborg. Now he's a cyborg. Like, now he's a robot. Like, it's not even Picard anymore, really. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can make the argument. I don't know. That might come up in our lifetime or our children's lifetime or something, where you can download your consciousness to a robot. Then are you still you or you're not you? Like, at that point, I don't know. I mean, I'm not. But anyway, I watched The Critical Drinker, who's now done with watching Picard.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, I'm done with it. I can't. It's not Star Trek anymore. They're making everything hateful. And that's not even bringing in Discovery. So...
I'm having some issues with the draw on this cigar.
Are you?
I am. I noticed that you are not, but I certainly am. Which is fine. Which is fine.
It's still more full-bodied than the other one.
The next time I smoke these, I will be doing a tequila cigar. So I haven't watched Picard.
Yeah, and I would highly encourage you not to.
I saw so many reviews and they were all negative, and It kind of reminds me of new Star Wars. It's just wretched, It's horrible.
New anything, really.
To an extent, yes. I mean, The Mandalorian was an exemption from a lot of that.
But it didn't really involve a lot of characters that we knew a lot about. Mm-hmm. Right? They created the Mandalorian character for the show. He interacts with some characters that we maybe have been like peripheral characters.
Yes.
Which is great because you don't need to know a whole lot about them. There's not a whole lot that can mess up with those characters because we never saw enough of them. Even watching Clone Wars and things, like some of these characters come back and but they're not back long enough. Like Ahsoka comes back. She's not back long enough to really get a sense of like what she's been through.
Right.
Where she is now, and she's getting her own spin-off thing, which I hope they do well. Not like
I'm extremely excited for the Ahsoka spin-off. Yep, I'm very excited.
I'm excited about that and Obi-Wan.
I don't know about Obi-Wan. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, one of my favorite episodes of Rebels was Obi-Wan and Darth Maul on Tatooine. And it's when Darth Maul catches up with Obi-Wan and he wants to kill Obi-Wan for, slicing him in half. And right before Obi-Wan kills him, Darth Maul goes, "Make sure that we're avenged." Or something to that, where basically Darth Maul is realizing that both Obi-Wan and himself were just pawns in this bigger scheme of like the Emperors, you know, and so it's like you really could feel for this villain. Like he's a villain, yes, but like he's kind of coming to terms with the part that he played, and it wasn't the part that he would have played had he kind of been out from under the Emperor.
Yeah.
So I think if they do the Obi-Wan one series right, I think it could be really, really good. But it's just kind of like the Picard thing, where they could have really taken it and brought it down to like the basest of human. Like, how does Picard cope with death? How does he cope with himself dying? Mm-hmm. We know how he copes with the Borg, and some of those inner hatreds and inner struggles. But how does he cope with himself?
Absolutely.
That could have been really fascinating, and I don't know what they did, but they didn't do that.
Well, I wanted, when I heard that they were going to redo new Star Trek, I wanted them to do Captain Worf. Captain Worf would have been great. You could have had O'Brien in there, in and out. You have some of the older cast, and then get a whole bunch of new people, and then continue the story that way.
Yeah.
They don't have to bring back all the old cast, but
yeah.
I mean, Worf and O'Brien have the most Star Trek episodes out of any of the characters. Everybody loves them. That watches Star Trek, and I've watched every episode of Star Trek and the movies before Picard. And I'm not watching Picard or Discovery.
Yeah. I've heard really bad things about Discovery. I guess I'll just sum them up with the things that I've heard is it's more about the what the critical drinker calls the message, the societal message where, everybody needs to have their, pronouns and their bios, and all of that, and everything's good and great, and we love everybody equally, and everybody has equal chances and equal opportunities and equal outcomes. So it's more of that and less of actual story or character development or things that make a story a story.
Yes.
And you can put that kind of message into your stuff and still have a fantastic story.
Absolutely.
You can have anybody you want as a protagonist and still have a fantastic story. They can be any gender, they can be any orientation, they can be any race. You still have to do your writing due diligence and make a good story. And we talked about that before too.
Yeah,
you can have diverse stories and diverse and lesser known stories. I read a really good book called Exit West. And it was basically, it was kind of sci-fi because there were these doorways that appeared everywhere, but you never knew where the doorway went. And once you went through it, you couldn't go back. But it was all doorways on Earth. And so it was kind of, it was talking about like refugees, like escaping situations and things. But in this, it was with sci-fi, and they were using these doorways to get to different places. But it was a fantastic story. Like I thought it was great, and it was very eye-opening, and I could correlate it because I have a brain and I know how to read. and make connections, I could correlate it to what they wanted me to correlate it to, which was, refugees. But they never ever really came out and they didn't hammer that point home over and over and over again.
Sure.
It wasn't like the news where every half hour they tell you the same story, so they make sure you get it. You can do it and let the reader or viewer make those logical
Absolutely.
jumps.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I think maybe we should talk about the Brooklyn subway shooting, because a lot of the shootings in America in the past have been done by white boys.
Some
white men.
Depends. Mass shootings are typically white male teenager territory.
Yes,
seems like.
And this one was a black man in the subway, and I saw people online that were still blaming white people for this shooting because he's a black man and he was held down by the white man.
Yes.
And therefore it's the white people's fault.
Mm. Well, I guess, if he didn't have any agency in his life, and maybe, I guess, theoretically, if he, I guess, if you're going to say that
but
this person...
But is that the fault of a white society? Are we even a white society?
A lot of this stuff is like, what the heck do they call it?
Well, it's
There's
like...
a term. It's like the racism of soft expectations or whatever, or it's like, or low expectations, where we all face bad things, and obviously some people face significantly worse conditions than others.
Very true.
Will not deny that, but you can't blame all the circumstances that go wrong in your life on other people. People are largely responsible for the bad things that happen to them. It seems like, at least partially.
Partially, and I feel that white or black or whatever, straight or not, or any of that stuff, there are some things that will hold you back, system-wise.
Absolutely.
Even for me, being a type 1 diabetic, I have to have, and I don't know how many people know this, I have to have my doctor every so often fill out a form that goes to the state of Minnesota that says that I'm legally okay, in my doctor's opinion, to drive a vehicle.
Sure.
Otherwise, I can't get a driver's license. Do I feel that that's fair? I've been diabetic since I was 4. I've never had an episode. I've never passed out due to my blood sugar. I've never been hospitalized outside of the initial time when they diagnosed me with it. I've never been hospitalized in 31 years. But I still have to have my doctor fill out this form that says that they think I'm okay to drive.
Sure.
And I don't think that that's right. I'm not going to shoot up a subway station or a subway restaurant over that. But it's not fair, I don't think. Somebody that's had a proven track record for over 30 years, I shouldn't have to go, ask and beg for this form to be signed. And yeah, okay, I get it. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as, maybe a black person being passed over for a white person, or any other kind of injustice that might happen in their life.
Absolutely.
But I think it comes down to what's an appropriate response.
Right. Yeah.
And then why when white people shoot up places, everybody goes, oh yeah, the white person, they're evil, and then they've been shooting up people forever, imperialism, this and that. And then when a black person does it, well, it's the white people. Like, why is it the white people
Absolutely.
still? And it just is your social message, that you want, equality for everybody, or is your social message that you want more equality for people that aren't white?
Right.
I mean, and that's where you gotta get honest with yourself. Like, if you want white people to be less equal than everybody else, or straight white people to be less equal than everybody else, then just say it. Just say it. Just tell me that. Like, I don't need this kind of like, well, you've had white privilege for so long. Okay, well, I'm not Elon Musk. I don't have blood emerald money, white privilege.
Right.
I don't have Donald Trump $1 million loan, small loan from my daddy.
Right.
White privilege.
Well, it's very in vogue right now to have those politics, where it's like the Me Too movement really stuck out to me. It's like, you're acting as if every man everywhere has Harvey Weinstein levels of power over the women that they work with.
Yeah.
And I can assure you that I do not have any power over any of my coworkers.
Yeah.
Male or female or otherwise, it just doesn't, my life doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, by and large, society doesn't work that way because I'm still like, all of the things, I switched roles over a year ago within the company that I work for, and I'm still getting entry-level wage. Mm-hmm. And I've been with the company for almost 7 years now, and it's still entry-level. And it's like, but I have 7 years experience, and in our parents' times, that would be, you'd have it made.
Right.
You'd be there. You would have been there. But that's not the way that it is anymore. And it's that way for everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like, they don't care gender, race, or anything. They just need to make sure they have enough of each, for HR purposes. Right. But by and large, they're just giving everybody entry-level wage. And meanwhile, inflation's 8%, and it's been the highest inflation since before Mike or I were born.
Yep.
This is the highest inflation we've ever seen. And, people are still giving out 3% merit increases, which is really, let's do the math, that's a 5% cut. Yep. You're getting cut 5% of your pay. So, I don't know where all this white privilege is. And certainly we probably have benefited from some. I don't know where.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it's not like somebody hands me something and says, here, this is because white privilege. Mm-hmm. And I don't want it to be that way. I want everyone to have an equal opportunity. If somebody else is better than me, then they should get it. But they shouldn't get it based on things that have nothing to do with job performance.
Right.
And then the same with me. Like, I shouldn't get things because I'm white. I should get things because I'm more competent.
Right.
Or not. Or I shouldn't get things because I'm not,
right.
Whatever it might be. There's a lot of people smarter than I am.
Oh, almost everybody's smarter than me. But...
And a lot of people that work harder than me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But life isn't fair. I just got my tax assessment this year for this property, and they raised my value up by 25%.
Yeah.
Property value, because they're building a housing development.
Yeah. Well,
farther out of town than I am, and it's like, so now they're going to tax this place as though I could build a housing development on it.
Yes. But that's white privilege that you have property.
I guess so, yeah. In a manner of speaking. They're going to tax me for it, too.
Yeah. But by and large, like, all the government officials up here are white.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
white or Native American.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple of city council members that are Native American.
Okay.
In this town.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, the listeners might not know that Native Americans are the main minority where I live. I don't know what the percentage is, but they're the main minority. Yeah. So it makes sense that we'd have Native Americans on our city councils, and
But I think to bring it back to the subway shooting, if you're feeling wronged, and if you're angry, picking up a gun and going to shoot people that have absolutely nothing to do with your situation, is not the right course of action.
No.
Think about it. You're going to the subway to shoot random commuters because you're angry about your lot in life.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to say anything else because of, big government and yada, yada. But, when France had an issue and they built a whole bunch of guillotines and took all their politicians down and gave them a real close shave across the neck there, that makes more of a difference than shooting up a mass transit hub.
Absolutely.
I'm not advocating for that.
That ended up being a disaster.
I'm just saying, if you look at history, and even with the price of lumber these days, it's a little cost prohibitive to do that, but you could still do it. I'm not saying you should. I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying you should.
We definitely should not, but
politicians and corporations are the ones that kind of control our country, and we shouldn't be mad at each other. We need to be mad at the politicians and the corporations.
Absolutely.
Which reminds me of something else that I have learned is that even if all of us, Mike and myself, and anyone listening, and all the people that don't listen, if you're not in a high up, if you're not like a CEO of a major corporation, if you're not a politician, all of us, citizens, regular citizens, any color, any creed, any whatever, we could cut out and be 100% sustainable in all of our stuff. We'd have no waste ever. If we could do all that, there would still be about 100 corporations that are responsible for over 70% of pollution on the planet. So just remember that when they tell you to drink out of a paper straw.
Right.
And I did see a funny meme. I know I talk about memes quite a bit, but it was, have turtles even tried a paper straw? I feel like if they had, they'd understand. Not that I'm advocating for, like overly wasteful, but I mean, you've got companies that sell basically bottled water. Right. And it's like, in America, there's really nowhere in America except for maybe Flint, Michigan, where you would need bottled water.
Right.
You don't need that waste.
There's some places,
you don't need that waste. But there's places in the world that need it.
Absolutely.
But you can do it in a way that's not in a plastic bottle that will fill up landfills. And
I've read many times that the U.S. military is the largest polluter.
Well, they're the largest portion of our budget.
Wow.
So is that causation? I don't know. But there might be some correlation there.
Maybe so. 180 military bases or whatever nonsense it is.
Yeah. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. Mike has gone to town on this tequila cigar.
I have. And I like it.
And I have been jabbing, which is strange because I've listened to some of our previous episodes and I tend to talk quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But I'm an introvert and I don't like talking, usually. But it must just be Mike's eyes. It just brings it out in me. I always have when we're not in person together, I always have a little picture of him on my desktop. And I just look at him as if I'm talking to him.
Well, thank you.
Yes. But he stopped by the other day down at our place. And I was telling him, we were talking about sports because he had just finished bowling.
Yep.
And I told him, and I'll regale you all with this story as well, or for our southern listeners, I'll regale you all with this story. I was flipping through, I don't know why, but flipping through TV back when I had, I don't know, cable. I must have been, bachelor and had cable included or something with the apartment. But I stumbled upon on ESPN 5 or something, ESPN 2, 3, I don't know how many they have, but it wasn't the main one where you watch most of your regular sports ball things. It was one of the other ones. And it was the World Championship of Rock, Paper, Scissors.
Now, you told me about this.
I did.
And I was initially not disbelieving, but we even talked about it, but you weren't sure at the time.
Honest to God, I was not sure.
If it was not sure a joke or if it was real.
And so, I really enjoy Monty Python and a lot of satire things. Don't Look Up is a movie that is pure satire, but it's too soon because it's kind of the whole COVID, is there COVID, isn't there COVID? Is it a threat, isn't it a threat? I think we don't have to talk COVID. But I think COVID was over when the vaccine became available for everybody.
Largely the threat was over.
Our cases rising, sure. You know what? I'm vaccinated. Don't care.
I've been vaccinated and I've had COVID. And so is Sarah. My wife had COVID. I think she had Delta and I had Omicron. But we were both vaccinated as well.
Yeah. But you're here.
Yeah. I wasn't even sick, which I got really lucky.
Yeah. And one of my coworkers had COVID. His whole family got it, and he still can't taste. He's feeling better, but he can't taste or smell. I guess sometimes that's permanent, and sometimes it can take up to like 3 months for that to return.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's out there. It's definitely a thing.
I have a friend who was an alcoholic who quit drinking after COVID because he couldn't taste. He likes those Lagunitas IPA.
Oh, okay.
Can't taste it. He still can't taste it. He's still not drinking.
Yeah.
He's like, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
I told
taste the Lagunitas.
my coworker said he can't taste, and he's hoping it comes back. And I said, "Oh, great! You can eat all the spiciest stuff you ever want." And he goes, "No, I still get the heat. I just don't get the taste." So like he's still his body still reacts as if he were eating a spicy thing, which he is. But anyway, that's off topic a little bit.
To rock, paper, scissors.
Yes. But if you can get vaccinated and you haven't been vaccinated yet, like, just do it. Like, it's not that bad.
Unless you've had COVID.
Unless you've had COVID, then you're fine.
Yeah, then
but
even the CDC
they're
is
coming out with like
now.
the third or fourth or fifth booster, you know, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I get the flu shot every year. No big deal. Like, whatever. We need to move from the pandemic phase to it's just always going to be here, which I believe they call endemic.
Yes.
It's just here. So it's
Absolutely.
here. Sorry. Whatever. I don't know anything about it. I'm not a doctor, which I've said before. I'm not a lawyer, which I've said before.
Yeah, this is not medical or legal advice.
No. But, you know, like, if you can be sick but less sick, I'll always choose the less sick. Like, I don't want to be, like, extra sick. But anyway, but I like satire and Don't Look Up is like a satire on the whole COVID deniers and COVID whatever the opposite is, like overly productive COVID people, where
Yes.
it's like I can't look at another human being because they might have COVID.
Yes.
Which I guess is kind of similar to like when HIV and AIDS first kind of got on the scene. There were
Absolutely.
lots of people. We just watched The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I didn't know much about her, but she's a TV evangelicalist who embraced
Jim Baker and Tammy Faye.
Yes, embraced AIDS patients on the air, and she was very, I guess, proactive about making sure that everybody knew that they were still people and they were still welcome in her vision of Christianity.
See, I didn't know that. 'Cause I would have the tendency to poo-poo not Tammy Faye.
I would also have the tendency
Jim
to
Baker.
poo-poo on her, and I guess Jim Baker is not that nice of a dude. But she's a very interesting person in her own right, as a TV evangelicalist would be. But, you know, her acceptance of people that would meet... as an atheist, in my mind, that would meet Jesus' definition of fellow man, where
Sure.
he embraced prostitutes and you know, people that weren't perfect. You know, it's not from what I've gathered from his version of the Bible, the New Testament, because the Old Testament was kind of like, you know, you fall in line or you get in the back of my hand. You know, you don't have to be perfect, and nobody could be perfect. And even lots of other philosophies even say that. Like, look, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to not follow this philosophy. You're going to mess up. But this is all just to drag out and having to tell you about this fucking Rock, Paper, Scissor World Championship, which is a thing. So I was watching it and I thought it was satire. Like, honest to God, I was like, is this for real? And I couldn't tell. And normally I've got a really good, like, satire meter. You know, like, This is... for sure 100% satire. And this is not satire, and these people are serious. This one, it was throwing it way out of whack. And so that's why I watched it longer than I normally would have, because normally I don't watch anything on ESPN.
Sure.
But they had it, and they had all the cameras, okay, and they had all the reporters. You know, it was almost like watching the Super Bowl or something, where they had all these cameras, they had all these reporters, and they had all the stats on all these let's just say players, athletes.
Yes.
And it was hilarious in a way, because they would do these rock, paper, scissor matches, and they'd be over in, you know, like, I don't know, 25 seconds, however long it takes to throw one of the three symbols. But then they would interview these players, and there was this one, and they interviewed it, and I remember, because I wasn't sure if I should, like, be laughing or if I should feel sorry for them, but they were like, yeah, I was homeless, and we found a full, like, Happy Meal bag or Big Mac bag or something in the alleyway. And my homeless buddy and I, we were like, well, who gets to eat today? And we decided we'd do it rock, paper, scissors. And I won. And then, like, now I'm here at the World Championship rock, paper, scissors. And, like, if that's a satire, like, hilarious. Right? If that's real life, I mean, that's sad.
That's the sad state of America.
And I can't laugh. So the whole time I'm just trying to watch this to figure out if I should or shouldn't be laughing at this whole thing. And then I never really thought much about it, other than it was an interesting little tidbit that I would tell people sometimes when they were like overly into sports or something. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I watched the World Championship, rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who won, and I don't remember, you know, there was everybody, all genders and races and
Sure,
things.
absolutely. It was a diverse cast.
Yes. And to kind of piggyback off of the female athletes episode, there were lots of women, and
Sure.
I don't think, this is one where I don't think, like, physical ability, physical stamina, muscle mass. It has nothing to do with rock, paper, scissors.
No.
Really. I mean, some people might say, well, they could, change their hand real quick, like if the reaction time, but that's not muscle mass. That's not...
Right. That's like twitch muscle, potentially, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm no expert.
Something sports-wise. We're not sports trainers either.
We are not trainers, and we're not qualified for anything.
We're not even qualified to smoke these cigars, except legally we're old enough.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, not to change the subject,
this is how fast Mike smokes.
I am nearly done.
I've got twice as much left as he has.
I am nearly done, and it was really good.
It's much better. I want more tequila on mine, though. Is that okay? Can we do that? Add more tequila? We've never done it. We've never added more.
I'm a strict moralist when it comes to those sorts of things, and I believe that you should do it if it feels good.
Yeah.
We're not hurting anybody other than ourselves.
That's what our neat brethren do.
Yeah, that's what
do it if it feels good. I'm just brushing the last little bit of my stick here, and by last little bit I mean half of the fucking cigar. This episode's a little more explicit than other ones, but we knew it would be because it's titled Tequila Cigar.
Yep.
And also we recorded this one back to back with our last episode, and we've been drinking throughout, and we started at 10 o'clock in the morning,
something like that. I think I picked you up at 9.
Yeah. So huzzah to that.
Yep.
Oh, much better now.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Put more tequila on yours. And people say I'm a bad influence.
Oh, jeez. Let's see here.
So, and I'm not 100% sure, but I looked up the World Rock, Paper, Scissors Championship Association, whatever, and it's an actual thing. And they've got a UK league, and they've got a World Champion League, and they've got a United States League. And kind of one of their blurbs is where anyone can be an athlete.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I didn't really look into what being an athlete actually means. All I can tell you is that the Rock, Paper, Scissors Championship thing is legit. I don't know if it's televised every year. It was at least televised once. Okay. I don't know if they do it more like... Is it more like the Pastafarians,
Sure.
Where they're trying to say that anyone could be religious and anyone could have a headwear religious exemption for state-issued IDs? Are they saying that anyone can be an athlete so that anyone can have access to, I don't know, athletic scholarships or the glory or whatever it might be? I haven't looked into it that deeply, and perhaps I should have. But I thought more interesting than looking in and actually knowing the facts was to sit here and pontificate with our tequila cigars on what an athlete actually is. Okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, because we could look it up and find the answer. But that's less fun than saying, like, well, what do you think an athlete is? And what comes to my mind is NASCAR. Like, our NASCAR driver's an athlete.
They experience a lot of G-forces. They do. I mean, it's not easy on their body.
Yeah, but then is an astronaut an athlete?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I would say they're a scientist.
All right, but check this out.
Our drag racers athletes.
That's what I thought you would say. Here's, you say
drag racers.
Oh, I thought you said drag dancers.
No, not drag dancers. Yeah, I don't know.
But is a video game player an athlete?
No.
Well, I mean, they do basically the same thing. They manipulate controls. A NASCAR racer manipulates controls. Is the fact that a NASCAR racer is an athlete because they're in a life or death situation potentially?
Potentially.
So what is an athlete? If a race car driver can be an athlete by manipulating controls, then can't a video gamer? But that's maybe like too into the weeds. Is a rock, paper, scissors player, participant, an athlete?
Is
a poker player an athlete?
My nephew refers to video games. He's 17, senior in high school.
Yeah.
He refers to video games as esports. And he was a hockey player, of course, being from northern Minnesota.
Yeah.
Pretty generic.
Yes.
And he bowls with me in the summer. And he likes to poo-poo on bowling because his dad was never a good bowler.
Okay.
I would consider something like golf to be athletic.
Well, and I think golf is athletic, but it's not athletic in the way of football, where you don't necessarily have to be in prime physical shape.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Same with
bowling.
Well, same with bowling. Same with what's that one where you have brooms on the ice?
Oh, curling.
Curling. You don't have to be in prime physical peak condition
to be a curler.
To be a curler.
Yes.
To be a golfer. To be a bowler.
To be a darts thrower.
Darts thrower. I mean, is dart throwing like
billiards?
I guess like if darts and billiards, if you're an athlete, then sure, rock paper scissors is.
Arguably, yes. I mean, it's definitely competitive.
Well, it's competitive.
Definitely competitive.
But board games are competitive. Are you an athlete if you play board games? I would vote no.
Are you a B Sports player or whatever?
Yeah. Are you a cardboard athlete?
A cardboard athlete? Oh my god.
I mean, I don't know. Why does everything have to be an athlete? I don't know.
Well, I can tell you when my nephew calls esports, it drives me nuts.
Oh,
you're playing video games.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I love video games.
Oh, who doesn't?
Especially when I was his age, I did. I play video games in a long time now.
I've kind of been getting back into video games.
I would like to get back into video games, but who has time? I hedged to trim.
Yeah. You got a podcast to record.
I got a podcast to record. Yeah, I got other stuff going on.
So much life is happening.
Exactly.
I don't know. I've been getting back into video games because I am now 2 hours away from one of my other best buds. And so the podcast is a great way for Mike and I to spend time together and chat. And then my other buddy plays video games, and so we've been doing like co-op video games online. And so it's just a nice way to stay in touch.
Yep, absolutely.
He's like, oh, you should play this one solo, and I'm like, yeah, probably not going to happen. And especially with a toddler, it's not like, oh yeah, I work all day, and then I'm going to skip work and go play video games, or I'm going to not spend time with my toddler and go play video. No, I've got the 2 nights a week. I do one night a week is our podcast, and then one night a week I play online board games with a buddy, and then I play online video games with my other buddy later. So I still go up and spend some time with the family and everything. But then that's the 2 nights, and then the rest of the week is family time and stuff. So you got to find a balance, I think.
Well, of course.
But you got to be able to do things that you enjoy too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I enjoy building stuff, but it's not like I paint bathrooms for fun or something.
Speaking about painting bathrooms, the premium pink is my vote.
We already have the pink.
Oh,
I can show it to you.
Which pink?
We have a
Which
gallon.
Pink?
I'll have to show
Is it
you.
the premium pink?
I don't think so. I can't remember what it was.
Okay, because they're going to repaint their bathroom. They've got a very light blue toilet.
And sink.
But the toilet's really the one that stands out.
Absolutely. Very pastel blue.
And so I really want them to have. They've got some paint cards up on the wall there, and they've got some brighter pinks. And then this premium pink is more of a pastel pink, which I think would go really well with the toilet.
We picked the pastel pink because I don't know if you saw. We're going to put wallpaper up on the one wall facing away, and that's got pink flowers and the light blue background.
So they painted their laundry room, and it was funny because Mike's Sarah posted on Facebook before and after pictures, but she didn't clearly label which is before and after. And so there was one where the walls were all white, and there was one where the walls were all this very bright purple. And I was going to comment, but I didn't. I was going to comment and say, thank God you got rid of that purple. But the purple is what they painted it. So it would have been a joke, but the purple looks great because it's a nice purple. When we bought our house, our trim was purple, but it was like a gross purple. And then my Sarah repainted it all to white because that's like a normal person color that you would paint your trim. But the purple they picked is a nice looking purple.
It's like Purple Rain purple.
Yeah. Prince would be proud.
Prince would be proud, yeah.
Yep. So. But I think we settled the athlete thing. Anyone can be an athlete if you want to. Anyone can be any any gender they want to.
That's not really important. I mean, people put a lot of importance on it now.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, and it's like and people are still talking about the Will Smith thing and the slap and everything, and it's like who cares? Like, it's not important. I don't know. In my mind, it's like it wasn't even a full on punch.
Right.
What I'm not saying it's okay. Like, I'm not saying it's okay to go and slap somebody, and I'm not saying it's okay to go to the subway and shoot people up. I mean, that's not the thing. Like, I think the main takeaway is, if you can't take a joke, if you can't appropriately direct your discontent at your station in life, then that's an issue. That's the issue. Right. It's, what are the proper channels to follow? And I understand that the system is not set up for proper channels, and it's not set up to give proper channels to those that are being wronged. Like, that's not it. But with things like this, like Mike and I, we were like, dude, we have some of the best conversations when we're drinking and smoking cigars. We should do a podcast. And Mike goes, hell yeah, why not? And here we are. And if we can do it, anyone can do it. And if you have an opinion and you have something you want voiced and you want put out there, like, it's easier than ever now to do it. It's easier than ever.
Absolutely.
To voice your concerns. It's easier than ever to partake in the greater societal conversation with social media, with things. And I think with social media, we should talk about Elon a little bit.
We certainly can. We talked about it before the episode.
Yeah, we had a little in-between episode conversation about Elon, and some people are very, very smitten with him. Mike and I are not smitten.
No.
Because we understand where he came from. He came from blood diamonds, blood emeralds, and his dad's money. He bought the title of founder of Tesla. He didn't create it. He didn't found it. He didn't do anything. We agreed, I think, that he has a little bit out of the box way of talking, or outside of the box way of talking, or a reverent way of talking, which ingratiates him with lower class people, classes lower than him. Not as a negative
elite.
Not as a negative put down. I'm just saying, like, he talks that way so that he gets people in classes lower than his class to like him.
Yeah, he's not talking like Mitt Romney. My favorite meat is hot dogs.
Yeah. And so I've seen some things online where people have been saying, if you oppose Elon Musk buying outright Twitter, then you are in favor of censorship. And we had a little chat, and I want you to get into it with me here because,
Okay.
It's Twitter. They're a company. They're not the government.
They are not the government.
They don't have. So if you're not the government, you don't have the burden of the First Amendment. You don't have to abide by the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights is Congress shall not pass any law that infringes on your freedom of speech. Congress shall not pass. All of them say that.
Right, and the First Amendment wasn't enumerated to the states right away. And that took time.
Yeah, and guess what? Twitter is not Congress.
No.
Twitter may pay Congress, for all we know.
I would say, and we've talked about it, it is a workaround in our society because these corporations are largely creating government policy.
Well, yes, and I won't disagree with you. And sometimes people get frustrated talking to me about this kind of stuff, because when I talk about some of this stuff, in my mind, I'm envisioning it as we have the true separation of church and state. We have the true separation of corporations and government. We have the true separation there. And the government is only there to protect citizens, not there for their own personal financial gain, which is not true, because we saw with COVID, a lot of them sold off stock and did insider stock trading and all of that. They don't care about us. They just want bigger bank accounts for whatever reason. I don't know why. Like, they make more than any of us could ever hope to make.
There's a cultural thing with the money. When you get that much money, it's competitive. It's competitive.
Yeah.
Money grabbing.
And how much money do you need? They get into the NFTs.
Yeah.
And it's like, why about one of the first times I was exposed to NFTs was this person painted, heavy air quotes, painted a I don't know, an 8-foot by 6-foot invisible painting, and they sold it as an NFT. And in the NFT document or whatever you get, it says if you want to display this properly, you need a 6-foot by 8-foot space in your house. For what? For nothing. It's invisible. It doesn't exist. Like, it literally doesn't exist. This artist took a crap on his toilet and thought, I'll bet you I could sell an 8x6 invisible painting. And it went for like millions of dollars.
Well, it's a sick-sad world.
But in my ideal world,
Daria reference,
right? Like, Twitter. Hey, if Twitter wants to ban, Jews, they're a private company. They can do it.
Right.
And what's funny is it's the far right that's angry about Twitter censoring speech because, oh no, they banned Trump. Well, they're a private entity, allegedly. And they were up in arms, and they wanted this baker to not have to bake lesbian or same-sex cakes. They didn't want homosexual cakes coming out of this bakery. And so they went and found that, hey, a bakery is not the government, and they're not subject to First Amendment laws. And now they're all up in arms because Twitter, another private, allegedly, company, is banning Trump. Or people with hate speech, or people with whatever.
People with opinions that are outside of,
Twitter's whatever.
Twitter's
they decided
window. What the heck is that window called? Anyway, outside of their scope, what they find to be acceptable.
Yeah,
which is not healthy. I think everybody can agree that the best thing for, like, let's say a neo-Nazi, because we can all agree neo-Nazis are bad.
Yeah.
The best thing for a neo-Nazi is to put their bullshit out there, and then to have Cornel West come and slap them down occasionally. That's better for everybody, because then you have these people not in a little bubble.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this in between episodes, but we talked about like Bill Gates, and I just read a fascinating thing about Bill Gates, and one of his answers, he was doing an interview with could have been Terry Pratchett or somebody that was an author and was very concerned about kind of these situations. And the interviewer said, aren't you worried about the internet kind of allowing anyone's voice to be heard and to be interpreted as an authority on the subject? And Bill Gates said, absolutely not. With the internet, we'll have so many more controls to be able to see who is legit and who is not. And I think recently with COVID, and, with parents that, told us to be careful on the internet, and now posting things that we look at and say, this is not being careful on the internet.
Right.
I think that, it was one of these things where quotes that have been proven false, where Absolutely. Bill Gates thought that it would be very easy to tell, but you know what? People don't read. People don't do due diligence. They don't read. They don't research what's right or wrong. And sometimes I get into real big quandaries about, am I actually, last episode we were talking about cry bullies and things. Am I being, and they have a whole Reddit, am I the asshole? Am I the asshole?
I read that one, yeah.
Well, they have them for all sorts of things, but and sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But it's, with a cry bully, is very, very hard to tell. Because sometimes it can be.
Sometimes it's supposed to be subtle.
It's supposed to be subtle.
It's intended.
If you have a good cry bully, you never know.
Exactly.
But then that's the thing, is you have to do the research, and kind of going back even episodes past with black rednecks and white liberals. I mean, you have to look at the history.
Absolutely.
And where these things sort of come from, and how they originated, and if you don't, then you're just at the whims of the popular voice at the time.
Everybody has an agenda, and
it's
that's very
not wrong.
popular now to not question certain agendas and to question other agendas. And these things move and shift throughout time. Yeah. It's just like...
I think the ultimate sign, though, of a bad agenda is when they actively discourage you from questioning it.
Yes, that's a red flag to me.
Yes.
If it's like, no, you don't question this.
Yes.
Like, no, and you have to think for yourself.
And that's why I became atheist, because I was not allowed to question the faith.
Right.
And
think for yourself, question authority.
Since then, I have talked to a wide range of people that are devout in their religion.
Sure.
And I've had the most amazing conversations with them. And they understood who I was and where I was coming from. And through our conversation, I understood who they were and where they were coming from. I wasn't trying to convert them away from their faith. Right. And they weren't trying to convert me to their faith. We just had a very good conversation.
Sure.
Where it was like, I understand you're an atheist. I understand you're a Jew. I understand, whatever religion they were or are. We just had a great conversation because a lot of that stuff is very fascinating. It's
Absolutely.
Very, very interesting. And I applaud them for their faith, but you have to be able to have those open and honest conversations.
Absolutely.
And when somebody says, well, we don't question that, oh, guess what? I'm going to question it.
Right.
And if you're not going to give me the answers, then I'll go find someone who will.
Right. Silencing opposition is usually a big sign that you're lying.
You're illegitimate.
Yeah. You're not telling it. You're not saying the truth. You're trying to hide what the actual truth is.
And a lot of political doublespeak is that way.
Oh, absolutely.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
My employer, various employers in the past, I've had various employers use doublespeak. And it's like a common HR thing. And I think everybody experiences that. I'm sure you experience that.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody who's listening experiences that wherever they are too. It's like you just don't want to be honest and truthful because the truth is usually pretty messy.
I had my annual or quarterly review with my boss and my boss's boss, and my boss was quitting, so they were out of the picture. And my boss's boss said, "I want the truth. I value the truth above all." You know what I did? Gave her about 40% truth. Any more than that, I'd be fired.
Right.
Like, honest to God.
Yeah. And that's our society right now is in a difficult place. We always are. It's always the same.
Yeah.
It's more. It's different, but it's the same, right?
Yeah. I mean, if it was not COVID, if it was not the war in Ukraine, it'd be something else. If it's not the war on terror, the war on drugs, it's Pogs or Pokemon cards.
Right. It's like I remember when Trumpster was talking about Frederick Douglass, like Frederick Douglass was still alive.
Yeah.
It's like people defended him. It's like, no, Frederick Douglass is a pretty important person in our history, right? I've read Frederick Douglass's work.
Yeah.
He should have known that Frederick Douglass. It was a historical character.
Yeah.
I mean, a historical figure. Yeah.
Yes.
We make these figures into characters. And who really knows what friggin' Ben Franklin was really like? Who knows? We turned them into characters.
You can do as much reading as you want, but ultimately it comes down to your interpretation or the interpretation of other people. I mean, Ben Franklin published an autobiography. So, but even that, like, if I were to write an autobiography, I'm not going to tell you all the times I sat and cried.
Right,
just
it's going to be propaganda. It's propaganda, yeah.
It's I can still try and make it as truthful as I wanted it to be, but you're not going to get, oh, Nate broke down and cried right here.
Right.
Like, exactly. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to spend 5 chapters on still crying. Still crying. So everything, it's like when you read things, even if they're speaking like an authority, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Because there's only so much you can kind of glean from things. And it's really interesting because a lot of historical biographers and things, they take all these sources and everything to try and get the most accurate, if they're a good one, try and get the most accurate, portrayal of this character. But you still have kind of the rose-colored glasses of the era of the biographer who's writing it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I went to Mount Vernon a couple years ago, and I came away not really liking George Washington. And it's like pro-George Washington propaganda at Mount Vernon, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're talking about the richest guy in the country who is a fucking drug dealer.
Yeah.
Right? It brings a whiskey rebellion into full focus when you realize he was the largest whiskey seller and he was pushing his competition out or facilitating his competition being pushed out by taxes.
Yeah.
Owned all these slaves, and I was at his plantation in August. It's hot. Yeah. Horrible hot. And I'm from Minnesota, so the heat
the DC area sucks.
It's horrible.
In the summer.
It's horrible. And I realize it's accentuated by the fact that I'm living in negative 20 for months out of the year. Yeah. So I'm more acclimated to the lower temperatures. But oh man, it was terrible. I'm like, what a shit face.
Yeah, but I think in George Washington's defense, and this was in the Thomas Sowell book, he bought as many slaves as he could.
Yep.
Because in his will, he gave them all freedom.
Yes, he did.
You know,
I mean, he's not. Nobody's all bad or all good.
No,
it's
they're
more
not all good or all
that,
bad. And the most interesting thing out of that book, one of the most interesting things was that a lot of the founding fathers wanted to abolish slavery from the get-go, but they couldn't do it and have the nation. You know, and it's the same thing that Lincoln said. If I could save the nation by freeing all slaves, I would. If I could save the nation by keeping slavery, I would.
Absolutely.
You know, is the higher ideal, the nation, you know, our Constitution, is that better served being a nation, or is it better served not being a nation?
Right.
And these are thoughts and concerns that you or I, we don't have any concept of. Because we weren't there.
No.
We weren't there.
No, they were thinking about other things.
And they were thinking about other things. And they were thinking about Britain. Britain was the massive world controller of the time. And they knew, split up, there's no chance.
Absolutely.
No chance to defeat Britain.
If Britain would have been more progressive in their time and ended slavery in 1770 or 1780, there would be no America. No. Because they would have easily beaten the rebel forces. Oh, our American forces. Yes. Their rebel forces.
The colony forces.
Yeah, the colony forces, if they would have freed all the slaves. But they didn't want to do that. You know, if Cornwallis would have just freed all the slaves, there would be no America at this point. Not in the way that we see it now.
Yeah, obviously. And you can look back at history black and white, but that's not the true history.
No.
There's shades of everything, and there's reasons people did things. And a lot of times people do things for self-preservation.
The indigenous population of this nation was enslaved before black people were imported. Yeah. And they killed them all off. Not all of them, obviously. There's still indigenous people around today. Yes. But you don't see a lot of history written about that either, you know? Yeah, it's not convenient to talk about Native Americans, which I think a lot about because I live where there are a lot of Native Americans.
Yeah.
But...
or even it's complicated. The Chinese that blasted through the mountains.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, the Chinese that built our railway system. Yeah. Largely in the West, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there's lots of things, and I think there's lots of different angles that the people that we have learned about in school peripherally, you know, we know, okay, George Washington, he was the first president. Okay, cool. And then moving on to the next chapter in the book here. But if you actually dig into some of these characters, they're very nuanced. Oh. Very, very nuanced.
John Adams was talking about women's suffrage in the 1780s.
Yeah.
And privately, not publicly. Because he knew his career would be over if he started talking about women's suffrage. But he believed that they should vote.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like a foreign concept.
No, and how self-aware. I mean, like, that's a good, in my mind, that's a good politician or a good statesman or a good representative of the country if you know that something should be a thing, like women vote, freedom of slaves, those things. But you also know that you have to be so delicate about putting it forward or putting things in place to make it happen in the future. It's kind of like that. It might be a Buddhist saying, where you plant a tree, knowing that you'll never enjoy its shade, but your future generations will.
Sure, I don't know.
I don't know if it's Buddhist, but but there's a saying like that. If you plant a tree from seed, you plant it knowing you're not going to benefit from its shade, but your future generations will. And, you know, you can decry the Founding Fathers all you want, but they set in place things that allowed us to get to where we are currently, which is not perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect.
Right now is a better time to be alive than any other time, for sure.
Than any other time ever. Yeah. But they set things in place that allowed us to do all of the things that we have done that have been good.
Absolutely.
They've also set in place things that allowed us to be terrible.
Right. I mean, but they weren't perfect beings, that's for sure.
No, and they're not infallible.
No.
But they certainly set things up to where if we want to make a change, we can.
Right. And I don't want to attack the Founding Fathers either. That's in vogue now. But when we were in school, it was the pantheon of American gods type of learning. You know, post Cold War, like rah rah, go America. Right before September 11th and all that sort of thing happened.
And even after, I think we kind of went more into the
Well,
now we've got a turkey.
Now we have a turkey
in the room. So,
we have a turkey. I'm not sure where it came from.
But Mike is done with his cigar. I'm just about done with mine. We highly, highly recommend the Tequila Cigars.
Absolutely.
If you have a cigar you don't like, just dip that thing into tequila.
Yep.
Follow the protocol that we've laid forth, or Arnold has.
Yes.
Don't make it too soggy. That's a very easy mistake to make.
Yes.
Especially if you're drunk.
It's very easy to make them too soggy.
But thank you for listening, and we'll pick you back up next episode.
Bye-bye.